very, very meaningful miracle. It was also like the miracle, perhaps the third greatest miracle in the Old Testament, the miracle of Elias. My dear friends, I advise you, I know you all biblical people, when you leave here today or tomorrow, don't put it off, you'll forget. Read two things in the Bible. Read the book of Esther. A lot of people say, why did Our Lady of Fatima wear the star at the hem of her robe when she appeared at Fatima? The only symbol she had, other than the globe she wore, and we know that represented the world, because she held it in her hands at the Rue du Bac when she appeared to St. Catherine La Bourrée, and she said, it represents the world and each individual person. You, me. French, the very word, chacun en particulier. Each one in particular. That's what the globe meant that she wore over her heart. But the star, what did the star mean? I haven't time to explain it. Read the book of Esther. Read the book of Esther. It will mean a great deal to you. And read in the book of Kings the story of Elias calling fire down from heaven. Why did he call the fire down from heaven? The people had fallen into idolatry. They were going to be destroyed by God's justice. And the prophet summoned the people to Mount Carmel and had a contest between the kings, the princes, the priests of Satan. And he said, to prove that God is God. And fire came down and consumed the sacrifice and the water in the trench around it. And what happened at Fatima? So that all may believe. And fire came down from the sky and consumed a sea of water and mud in that vast hollow of Fatima, so that all may believe. Therefore, this miracle of Fatima had the elements of the three greatest miracles of the Old Testament. What is more, and I repeat it over and over, never before in the history of the world had God permitted a miracle at a predicted time and place, so that all may believe. Now Jesus said to the towns which knew him well, like Capernaum, Bethsaida, if Sodom and Gomorrah had seen what you see, they would have repented. And it will go better for Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than it will for you. How is God going to judge us who have received this great miracle, the anniversary of which we commemorate today, when the Pope sent the prime cardinal of the Church to speak at Fatima about the necessity to believe? Now, what is it we are asked to believe? Our Lady foretold the rise of atheism in Russia, which would spread throughout the entire world, and that several entire nations will be annihilated. But if her requests are heard, Russia would be converted, and an era of peace would be granted to Russia, Bosnia, Africa, Israel. An era of peace will be granted to mankind. This is going to be a new era. The Holy Father said in his marvelous book, Crossing the Threshold of Hope, a phenomenal publishing event, millions of copies all over the world, at the end of the book, perhaps the very thing that inspired the title of the book, Crossing the Threshold of Hope, the Pope said, it seems that as we approach the millennium, the words of Our Lady of Fatima are nearing their fulfillment. What words? What words haven't been fulfilled? Well, we think of the two prophecies. There are only two prophecies of Fatima out of several that have not been fulfilled. One, several entire nations will be annihilated. That hasn't happened yet. Second, my Immaculate Heart will triumph. So when the Holy Father speaks, the words of Our Lady of Fatima are nearing their fulfillment as we approach the millennium. Is he speaking of the annihilation of nations or of the triumph of her heart? There are other words Our Lady spoke. She told us what we had to do to avoid the chastisement. She said she came, and I use her own words, to prevent this. Does the Holy Father hope that now in these last 3 years, her words, her conditions for the triumph of her heart are going to be fulfilled? Do you think that is his hope? He said in his encyclical, Tertio Millennio Adveniente, that he thinks that the leading of the Church to the millennium is the reason for his pontificate. That this was why he was born and made Pope. And he has a 3-year plan. And he says in the encyclical that he issues this plan in the hope, these are his words, in the hope of the definitive coming of the kingdom of Christ. What is the definitive coming of the kingdom of Christ? It's the final. It's the reality. Definitive means that's it. Can he dare to hope that much now, the way things are? That's what he says. And he says it in an apostolic letter. Many Catholics have responded to the message of Fatima. Most have not. It was only after 80 years, after more than 25 million had made the pledge to do as Our Lady asked, that we had a change in Russia. But the evils of militant atheism, now that's what Our Lady predicted would come out of Russia. The evils of militant atheism have persisted, while the response right now, I don't know whether you're going to agree with me or not, but it seems to me that right now the response has diminished. This way it seems to me. Today we hardly hear about the urgency of responding to the Fatima message. Instead we hear controversy, mixed voices, other crusades. And in 1973, on this very day, on this anniversary of the miracle of Fatima, in 1973, Our Lady appeared in Akita, Japan, as Our Lady of all nations. And she said, and this is the third secret of Fatima, as I told you, if men do not repent and better themselves, the Father will inflict a terrible punishment on all humanity. It will be a punishment greater than the deluge, such as one will never have seen before. Fire will fall from the sky and will wipe out a great part of humanity, the good as well as the bad, sparing neither priests nor faithful. And the most awful thing Our Lady said, the survivors will find themselves so desolate that they will envy the dead. Now, why did Our Lady say, of course, fire will fall from the sky? I've always felt that the miracle of Fatima was an image of the chastisement.